Welcome back and welcome to part 2 of this Blender tutorial series where we're creating the Tesla Cybertruck. If you haven't seen the previous part, then you can check it out with the link in the video description. So this is where we left off in part 1. So in part 1 we created like the base body object and the windows and also like the back bed here. And so in this part we're going to be modeling the tires and the hubcaps. Now before we start, I just want to give a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters and Gumroad customers for making these videos possible. So if you'd like to join my supporters in helping out this channel, then links will be in the description to my Gumroad store and Patreon page, where you can get 3D models and assets, tutorial files, artwork project files, procedural materials, geometry node modifier setups, and lots more Blender content on my Gumroad and Patreon. So thank you everyone so much for your support. So I'm going to open up the outliner here, and I'm just going to close the Cybertruck here, and then I will click on the check mark there to uncheck it. Then I'm going to right click, and I'll just click on new collection, and I'm going to drag the collection up here, and I'll double click on it to rename it, and I'm just going to call it wheels. So we're going to have a new collection for the wheels. So let's hit Shift C to center the 3D cursor into the center of the scene. And we'll go to the add menu, and I'm just going to add a plane, and then I'll go into edit mode and I'll rotate the plane on the X by 90 degrees. Then I'll go back to object mode, and we can double click on this if we want to rename it, and I can just call it tire. So let's go to front view, and I'm going to go into wireframe. Now you can see right now there is the references, and so we can see the front reference. What I actually want to do is add in a new reference image, which is just going to be the tire. So if we open up the references right here, we can click on these little eyes here just to hide these references so we can't see them for now. So now what we're going to do on front view is just going to drag and drop in the tire reference image, and I'll hit Alt G to clear the location. So we're now going to select the tire object, which is just the plane, and we'll go into edit mode, and we're just going to model it to the shape. So let's scale it up here, and then we'll scale it down along the Z axis and bring it down. So just bring it down like that. We're now going to box select the top, and we're going to bring the top down on the Z axis, and then we're also going to box select this side, and we're going to bring it up, and let's actually bring it back here like this, and then we can just extrude it out so it has thickness right there. All right, so let's now box select this side, and let's actually bring it back, and then we can extrude it out like that. So we're now going to add some loop cuts in the middle, so we'll add a loop cut, and we'll drag the loop cut right down there so it fits that spot of the tire. We'll add another loop cut and drag it right there, and then add another loop cut, put it right there. Box select these two and just bring them up on the Z axis. So it starts here, then it comes up, then it's flat here, then it goes down, and then we need to have it come up here. So add another loop cut, bring it up on the Z axis, and then we'll add another loop cut right here and bring it down a little bit. Let's also add a vertical loop cut or a horizontal loop cut just like that. So it's going up and down there. And then these little pieces here are going to be like the grippy parts of the tire. Let's add some loop cuts here. So we'll add one there. We'll add another loop cut right there, and then another loop cut right here. And then if we select this vertex, we'll double tap G to edge slide, bring it over, and edge slide this right over there just to fit the wireframe. And then right over here, why I'm edge sliding these right over here is because I want these two to connect, because we're going to be using an array modifier. So the bottom of this object is going to connect to the top of it. And so if we edge slide these over, then that way like this one can connect to this vertex and this one can connect to that vertex, so we don't have overlapping vertices. So let's now go back to solid view, and I'm going to go to the face select, and we're going to select this face and this face and this face and this face and that one. We're just going to select all of those faces, and we're going to extrude them up so they have some thickness, just like that. So that's like the grippy parts of the tire. And then we'll go to the vertex select, and we'll box select these vertices and box select these vertices, and we'll go to top view. We're just going to bring them back a little bit because this is where the tire is going to start to curve down. So we'll bring that down like that. So that's it for the basic tire. So now let's just close this here, and we'll add modifier, and we're going to add the array modifier. Now on the factor X, we're going to turn this to 0, and on the factor Z, we're going to turn this to 1. Actually, we don't want to turn it to 1, but you can see if I drag up the Z, you can now see it's going up and down. So we just want to drag the Z down until it is just merging with the other piece, just like that. So it looks like a 0.42 is going to be perfect. So then what I also want to do is turn on the merge here, so check mark merge, and that way it's going to merge the top and the bottom, and we also want to click on the first and last copies so it merges them. So for example, like this here, you can see if I go to wireframe, this is a little bit off, so if I select this vertex, we'll double tap G and I'll edge slide it over like that, so that will merge, and then select this one, double tap G and edge slide that over so that this one here is going to merge with these down here. And then of course the other ones are just going straight up and down. So now let's turn the count up, and we're going to turn that count to a pretty big number. Maybe I'll just turn it to like a 60 for now. So you can see this is definitely starting to look like a tire. So now what I want to do is add another modifier to rotate it around to make it look like a tire. So what we want to do is hit Alt-G to make sure the location is in the very center, and then we want to hit Control-A, and we want to apply the rotation and scale. So then this count here, let's turn this up to 70. And then with this count at 70, let's add modifier, and we can add the simple deform. Now on the simple deform, we can change it to bend. You can see it's going to start to rotate around. So we can now use this angle just to rotate it all the way around, and you can see now it's starting to look like a tire. Now let's minimize the array so that we can see it better. So on the simple deform, you might want to change the X, Y, or Z axis if it's not deforming correctly, but you can see mine is rotating correctly because of how I modeled it, so it can rotate on the X axis all the way around. So now what we need to do is just make sure that the angle is rotated all the way around so that it connects. Now if we try to turn up the array count, you can see instead it's just going to make the tire bigger. So I'm going to leave this at 70. So instead we need to take this angle and we need to make it larger than 360. So let's instead make it like 368. And if I go to wireframe, go to side view and kind of zoom in here, let's just drag it down back a little bit. Let's see here. If I go to side view, kind of go here and hit 5 on the numpad to go to orthographic view so I can zoom in close. You can see I can just kind of drag this back and forth. And it looks for me, turning it to 367.11, maybe just drag it slightly farther down. So I guess 367.1 degrees. So just like that. So you can see now they are very close to each other. They're almost overlapping. Now, just in case we want to go back to this, I'm going to duplicate the object and we're going to move it, and we're going to move it to the backup collection. Again, just because we have a backup, just in case we applied the modifiers, but then realized we want to go back. Now, before we apply the modifiers, there is one more thing that I realized that we should do. So if I zoom in here to the side, you can kind of see the topology. So there's like a really small face there and then a really big face. But I want to make this more even so that the topology is nice and even there on the side. So I'm going to select this vertex and double tap G to edge slide it down. Like that, so it's about in the center, and then we'll do the same thing for this side, so select this and double tap G so it's in the center. So that way when we apply the modifiers, the topology will be a lot more even. So again, we'll duplicate this, we're going to move it to the backup collection, so we just have a backup, and then we will select the object, and we're going to apply the array, and then also apply the simple deform. So if I go into edit mode now, you can see if I like select this loop here, I can extrude it and scale it down, and you can see the topology is pretty even because we kind of move that loop over. I'll just hit Control Z to undo that. Now what we want to do is we want to select everything and we want to hit M, and we're going to merge by distance just to make sure it merges any overlapping vertices. But you can see it says removed 0 vertices. However, if I hold down the Alt key and select that loop there, you can see there actually is overlapping vertices. So if we select everything and merge by distance, we want to open up the merge by distance, and we just want to turn this up to a little bit. So we just want to turn up a little bit higher and until it starts to merge. Now, if we turn up too high, you can see it's going to start to merge everything, and that's not good. So we just want to turn up just a little bit so that it removes those 12 vertices. So it looks like if I turn it to 0.5 millimeters, you can see now it says remove 12 vertices. And why it says 12 vertices is because this line here back and forth is 12 vertices. So it now merged where the ending was and the starting was, because if I go to side view, the ending and the starting was somewhere around here, but you can see it doesn't look like anything is overlapping. So you can just like select the vertices, move them around, but it doesn't look like we have any overlapping vertices, so that's great. So the tire is completely connected now. So now we want to model the sides of the wheel. So let's go to front view, and I'll go to wireframe, and I will extrude this out just a little bit, and then I'll scale it down. And let's go to side view, and what I want to do is just hide the other reference. So if we go to solid view, let's actually go to side view here, go to wireframe, and we'll select this reference. So we don't need this reference anymore. So we're going to drag it into the references right here. And if we double click on it to rename it, I can just rename it to tire. And then I'm going to rename it to tire reference since we already have a tire object. So tire reference. And then we can just click on the eye here just to hide it. And we're going to unhide the top, side, front, bottom, and back. So unhide the other references. So now we'll select the tire and we'll go to side view, and I can scale the tire way down, move it over here, and we're just going to scale it into place. So just stick it right there where the front wheel is. And so then we can use it as the reference. So we can use the front and side references and the top references to help us model it. All right, so just like that. So we'll go to side view, and we also want to drag it over here All right, so the scale is accurate. All right, just like that. Now what I also want to do is add like a bit of details here on the side. So I'm going to add another loop cut right here in the center. So Control R, add another loop cut right there. And if we go to the front view, let's just drag it out slightly. All right, now if I zoom into this loop that we've added, I want to zoom in close to it, and I want to use Control B for a bevel. And I just want to drag this out just a little bit so there's a very small bevel. Let's go to front view, and I can go to wireframe, and it looks like it's a little bit too low, so it needs to be higher. So let's hit Control Z to undo that. So I'll double tap G and edge slide it up so that there's that little dark spot right there, and that's going to be where it is. So just right there. So we'll now hit Control B for a bevel, just make a very small bevel, and then we will extrude it. And you can see it's going to automatically extrude along the normals. So I'll just bring the faces back. All right, just like that. So we have that nice little inset right there on the tires. All right, so let's go to the vertex select, and I'll select the vertices right here. So select the entire loop of vertices, and we'll just hit the F key to fill a face there. So you can now see there's the edge of the tire. I might want to just select this loop and like double tap G to edge slide it up a little bit so that it's a little bit more round, just like that. So now we have the end there of the tire, and then we'll do pretty much the same thing for the other side. So we're going to select that entire loop. Let's go to front view. We're going to extrude out just a little bit and then scale it way down. And then we're just going to extrude it and scale it way down so it has more thickness there like that. And we'll extrude it and scale it down, and then we'll start to bring it back a bit. And we'll extrude it and scale it down even more, and we're going to make this a lot smaller like that. And then we're going to extrude it back into the wheel, and then we'll just fill a face there. So now we're going to add some modifiers. So we want to add a bevel to bevel the edges. So we're going to search for the bevel modifier. And because this is a very detailed object, I don't want to turn the bevel segments too high because this is already kind of high topology and it might get a bit laggy. So let's just drag the segments around so the bevel's just a little bit smaller. All right, and then we're going to shade the object smooth. But then you can see when I shade it smooth, it kind of looks kind of round, and the flat faces don't look too flat. The shading just looks a bit weird. So I can search for the weighted normal modifier, and you can see now it's going to flatten up those flat faces. So it really does make the object look better, but it keeps it kind of lower poly, because if we had like a subdivision surface modifier and things, it's going to be quite laggy because there's just so much details. So let's go back into edit mode, and I'm just going to center the 3D cursor to the center of this face. So just select this face, and you can hit Shift S and go to cursor to selected, so the cursor's in the center there. Now if I go to the add menu in edit mode, we're going to add a cylinder. All right, so there's the new cylinder, and I'll scale the cylinder way down. Now let's rotate the cylinder on the Y by 90, and then I can select this face, and I can bring the face out here, and we're going to bring it there into about the center, and then we'll delete the extra face there. We don't actually need the face. And also right in here, if we zoom in, we can select the face here and delete that extra face because we don't need it. So that's going to be the axle where the tire is going to rotate from. We could maybe even scale it down so it's a little bit more thin. Don't forget to hit Control S as you're working on the project to save it. So now let's add another modifier, and we're going to add the mirror modifier. But instead of it mirroring over in the center of the object, we want to mirror in the center of the world. So what I'll do is hit Shift C to center the 3D cursor, and I'll go to the add menu, and we can add an empty, and we're just going to add the plane axis. So this empty is now in the center of the world. So if we select the tire and we scroll down here to the modifiers, we'll choose the mirror object, and we're going to choose the empty. So now it's mirroring from the center of this object. So we'll go back into edit mode of the tires. We're going to go into wireframe and just box select the axle here. And if we scroll down, what we want to do is turn on the clipping button on the mirror. So I can drag this into the center of the mirror, and it's going to merge together. Now, as well as mirroring it over back and forth along the car, I also want to mirror it to the front and the back. So what I can do is also mirror it on the y-axis. So if we mirror on the y-axis, you can see now it's mirrored over to this side, but then also it's mirrored back and forth. Now, the problem with this, if I just select the empty and then go to side view, the problem with this is that the back tire is too far back. So with the empty selected, we can just drag the empty back and forth, and we can just fit the tire to the reference. So we'll go to wireframe, we'll zoom in here, and we'll move the empty over along the y-axis and just stick it right there. So now you can see the length is going to be the correct size. So we can now just click on this here to unhide the Cybertruck so we can see the entire Cybertruck. So now what I want to do is model the hubcap. So what I'm going to do is make a new collection. We'll click on new collection. We're going to call this hubcap. And then I just want to drag the hubcap collection right up here. And then we want to hide the wheel collection and hide the Cybertruck collection. So we'll center the 3D cursor and we're going to go to side view. And then also on the references here, let's just click on the little eyes here just to hide those references. And then also we can click on the arrow here so that it'll disable the selection. So now what we want to do is drag in the hubcap reference image from the reference image pack that you can get on my Gumroad store. Links in the description, and I will hit Alt-G to clear the location. And let's also just drag it here into the reference collection, and I can just rename this to hubcap reference. So let's just make it so it's deselectable, so we can't select the reference, and then we'll go to the add menu and we're going to add a plane, and we want to make sure the plane is in here in the hubcap, and we can just rename it to hubcap. So let's just select our plane here, and we're going to rotate it. We'll rotate it on the Y by 90 degrees, and then we will apply the rotation and scale because we just rotated it. So on side view, we're going to go to edit mode. We'll go to wireframe, and I'm going to scale it down and bring it right up here, and we'll scale it down. And you can see that when I scale it down, you can see the center isn't really aligning up correctly. So what I'm going to do real quick is just open up the outliner. We'll go to the references, and if we click on the hubcap reference, let's make it selectable again. And if I select it, we're going to move it over just slightly so it's in the very center, just like that. So I can now deselect it, and let's now select the plane again. We'll go into edit mode, and I'll box select the plane and bring it down, and then we can extrude it down just like that. And we're going to add a loop cut in the center, so Control R, add a loop cut in the center there, and then we'll box select this side, and we're going to delete the vertices. And that way we can add a mirror modifier to mirror it over to the other side, and we're going to mirror on the Y axis. And we'll turn on the clipping button so it merges with the mirror. So now box select this, and we're going to drag it up. And we're going to add another loop cut, and we're going to drag the loop cut right over there so it fits with that beveled edge. So we'll just select these vertices and drag them up here, and then we'll select both of them, and we will extrude this up just like that, and then extrude it up again like that. And then if we box select these two vertices, we'll bring them up. And then if we select this vertex, we'll bring it over. All right, now let's go down here to the bottom. And I actually want to select this bottom part, and we actually want to delete the vertices, because instead I'm just going to take these two and bring them down on the Z-axis. So we just have kind of that triangle-ish shape there, kind of that beveled edge. So now we'll box select the entire side here, and we're going to extrude it out like that. Now you can see right here, this part, we're going to have it kind of mirrored over. So we're basically going to like array it and array it all the way around. So we have 7 of these, so 7 of these pieces here. And so we don't actually need to model the entire thing. We just need to make sure that this goes just to this point so it can merge with the mirror. So we're going to box select these, and we're going to bring them over and rotate them just like that. All right, and then box select this and maybe bring that down. And just for now, we can get it pretty close, but then later we will fix it and make it exact. So let's now go to solid view, and let's zoom out here, and you can see the entire thing is really flat. So we need to go to the face select, and we need to select these faces in the center, and we need to bring the faces out so it's coming forward. All right, so bring it out forward like that. Let's now go here to the bottom. I will go to the vertex select. We'll select this vertex and extrude it into the mirror. And then if we select these 4 vertices on the bottom, we'll fill the face right there. Then we're going to navigate up here, and we'll go to the face select and select these faces. And we're just going to extrude the faces back so that they go in, and we have that little inset right there. All right, that's pretty good. And then right over here, you can see we have an extra face. So we want to select that face and delete the faces. And let's make sure the bottom looks good. Okay, that's good as well. So now what we want to do is go to the vertex select. We want to select these vertices, and we just want to extrude them back a little bit so that, again, they have a bit of thickness. But then what I want to do is go to the face select, and we're going to select this face here. I will go to top view, and I'm going to bring this face back. So bring it back just like that. So now this part here will just taper back. And then if I go to the edge select or the vertex select, we'll select these vertices, and I want to scale them. We'll scale them on the x-axis by 0, just to make sure that they are fully flat. Now, if we go to side view, you can see right here, there is basically a cylinder or a circle with 7 faces. So if we center the 3D cursor and go to the add menu, we're going to actually go into edit mode. We'll do this in edit mode, and we're going to add a circle. Now let's turn off clipping just so that nothing is messed up. So we'll turn off clipping. And then if we click here on the add circle settings on the vertices, we want to change this to 7 and then close the add circle settings. And then we'll rotate this. We'll rotate it on the Y axis by 90 degrees, and we're going to scale it way down. All right, now you can see there's the mirror, but just ignore the mirror for now. We're just going to rotate this. Now there is also the mirror there. You can see if I rotate this, you can see the mirror, but we're just going to ignore that for now and just rotate it just like that and scale it up so it just fits the object. So now we're going to hit Control R to add a loop cut right there. So add a loop cut on the top, and then we're going to box select this side and we're going to delete the vertices. And then we can turn back on clipping. So now if I select this side, you can see if I try to move it out, you can see it's connected to the mirror. So now that it's scaled up to the correct size, what I want to do is extrude it, and then we're going to scale it, and we're going to type 0 and enter. And then we're going to merge by distance, select everything and just merge by distance. So now you can see we have that triangle shape and it's the correct shape. Now if we go into wireframe, you can see we also need to model these details. And then also we don't actually need all of these other triangles because we're going to be adding a mirror modifier. So let's hit K for the knife tool. We'll click here, then we'll hit Z to force it to go up and down on the Z axis. Click there and hit enter. So now we can select all of these other vertices here and we can delete the vertices. Because again, we only need to model this tiny little corner here. So this little like slice, and then we'll mirror it over to this side and then we'll array it around. So you can see we actually just need that little bit right there. So turn on the clipping button, make sure the clipping is turned on so that it merges with the mirror. So let's go back to wireframe and I'm going to box select these vertices and I'll extrude them up and we'll rotate them and move them over here, and we'll rotate this so that it's at the correct angle. And then if we go to side view, or actually to front view, we want to drag this back. Then we'll hit L to select the linked vertices and bring it forward. All right, so just like that. And we want the angle to be correct. So let's box select these vertices down here and bring it forward like that, something like that, so that the angle is correct because we want this to be about the same angle. Let's also select this and maybe bring it down like that, and then maybe select this and bring it up because we want the angle to be pretty similar, so that's pretty good. Maybe just bring this down a bit and then bring these both up. We want the angle to be pretty similar. Let's also select everything and hit Shift N to recalculate the normals. So let's now go to side view and I'll go into wireframe and I want to select this vertex here and drag it back down a bit, just like that, and maybe drag this up a little bit. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now let's go back to side view and we'll go to wireframe and I want to add some loop cuts here. So we'll just use the knife tool and we're going to click here. We will hit X to constrain it to the X axis, click there, hit enter, and then we'll add a loop cut. So we'll add a loop cut right there, and then we'll add another loop cut right down there. And then we also want to add another loop cut right here. So add another loop cut there. We'll select that vertex, double tap G and edge slide it over. Just like that. We can also select these two vertices and we can scale it along the y-axis by 0 just to make sure it is flat. All right, so we'll now go to the face select. We'll go back to solid view and I'm going to select these faces here and let's navigate over here to the side and we will extrude them back. So just like that. And then if we select this face, we don't want this face here, so we'll delete the faces. All right, so we're getting the basic shape. Let's go back to side view and we'll go to wireframe, and I also want to model these parts right here. So I'm just going to go to the edge select. I'll select this edge and I'll duplicate this edge and move it up, and then we can extrude it down just like that. So we're basically modeling that piece there. Then we want to model this piece which comes down. We also want to model these little other grippy pieces. So let's just box select these vertices. We'll duplicate them. Let's bring it into the mirror and scale it up here. Now if we try to extrude it out, it's going to be connect to the mirror. So we'll box select these vertices here, duplicate it, move it down. Then we can select this and we'll move it up here. If we select both of these, we'll extrude them into the mirror so they connect with the mirror. We'll select these vertices and extrude it all the way over to this corner here. So this is where it's going to eventually merge up to. Then we'll add a loop cut right there. We'll edge slide it and we can drag this loop down. So drag that vertex down, maybe edge slide this like that. And then we will select these two vertices, we'll duplicate it, scale it down, and we're just going to make the basic shape for these little grippy bits on the tire. So we'll extrude this down, bring this down there. We'll box select these vertices and duplicate it and scale it up, rotate it a little bit, and then extrude it forward. And we can just place it to the reference. So pretty easy modeling. Duplicate that again. We'll bring these down and bring that up. Just like that, so it fits the reference, and we don't need to do the other side because we're going to use a mirror modifier to mirror it over to the other side. So you can see now we're really getting the basic shape of that. Let's hit the L key to select this piece here, and we'll bring it forward, and then we'll extrude it back so it has some thickness. Now I do want to make this piece start to rotate over a little bit, so we're going to add some loop cuts right here. Let's scroll our mouse wheel so there's like 3 loop cuts, and we'll put it there in the center, and then we'll go to the face select. We'll select this face, and we are going to bring the face back a bit. Then if we select that loop right there, let's bring that back a little bit and bring that back a little bit. And then if we select that loop there, we're going to bring that back a little bit, select the bottom face and bring it back. So it's basically like curving over. If we use the L key to select that entire linked piece, let's maybe rotate it a little bit. So rotate it over on the y-axis a little bit. So it's kind of rotating over. And then I'm going to add some loop cuts right here. So we're going to add like 3 loop cuts right there. And then we will select this loop and we're going to bring it back. Select this loop and bring it back, just so that again it's kind of curving over a little bit because it's going to start to rotate with the tire. So rotate that over. So you can kind of see it's very subtle, but it is going to start to curve a little bit. So then we'll select this entire piece, maybe bring it forward, and then we can extrude it back to give it some thickness. And then select everything and recalculate the normals. All right, that's looking pretty good. Also, these back faces here, we actually don't need them. So if we box select these back faces, we can delete those faces. We can select these faces here and bring it back, and then again delete those faces. And then we are going to select these right here, and we're going to go to front view. Let's maybe rotate them and move them back a little bit so they're kind of curving over a little bit, and then we will extrude them back, and then we can delete those extra faces there. Looks like we also need to recalculate the normals again, and then I want these to curve over slightly as well. So we're going to add 2 loop cuts right there, and then maybe like 3 loop cuts right there. If we go to the face select, we will drag these faces back. Let's actually just go to the edge select. Select this edge and drag this back a bit. Drag these edges back a little bit, and these edges back a little bit. And then we'll just do the same thing here. So drag this edge back a little bit. And then also right over here on this side, we want to go to the face select. We want to select these faces and delete the faces because we don't want those. So there is all the basic modeling for the hubcaps. So now we want to duplicate these and rotate them so that there's going to be 7 of them. So again, we're going to center the 3D cursor, and then we'll go to the add menu, and we're going to add a empty plane axis. We're going to select the original object again, and we're going to add an array modifier. So right now you can see it's arraying it forward. If I scroll down here, we want to turn the X factor to 0, and we actually just want to turn off the relative offset. So we're not going to use relative offset. Instead, we're going to use object offset. So we'll turn on object offset, and on the object here, we'll click on the eyedropper and we'll choose the empty. So you can see now if I rotate the empty, it's going to move those parts around. So it's going to move around the arrayed object. Now, if we select the object, we want to have 7 of these, so we'll turn the count up to 7. So now if I select the empty and rotate it, you can see if we rotate it all the way around, we're getting this effect here, so we can have 7 of them. So let's go to front view. Now we could just rotate this around and try to eyeball it. However, I'm going to instead just use a calculator. So 360 degrees is all the way around, but we want to divide this by 7. So when you divide it by 7, you can see here's the answer. I'm just going to use 51.428. We don't need to use all these other numbers because that's just going to be way too small. So if we select the empty object is rotating them. We're going to rotate this and we're going to type in 51.428. And you can actually see right up here in the corner of Blender, you can see we're rotating it by 51.428. So just check that that's right and then hit enter. So because we rotated the empty, these objects are going to be rotated around by that amount. So you can now see we have the shape of the hubcap. Now what we also want to do if we select the object again is we want to click on the merge here, open up the merge so that it's going to merge it together. So merge any overlapping vertices. And then we also want to click on the first and last copies. And so that way it's going to merge the very last copy, which is arrayed with the first one. Now before we actually apply the modifiers, I want to make sure that this spot here, which is merging, is going to be at the correct spot. So if we go to side view and go to wireframe, let's go to the vertex select and we'll deselect everything. And if I just box select some of these vertices, you can see if I drag them back here, if they're too far away, they're not actually going to merge. So even though we have the merge turned on, they're not actually going to merge if they're not close enough. So I'm going to drag these back, and you can see once they get close enough, they're going to merge. So just kind of drag this together until they merge. They just need to be close enough to merge. And right here, we'll drag that together. And it looks like that is merging. So we're just going to go all the way down and make sure that they're merging. All right, that's good. So that's all merging. So it looks like everything is merging now. So what we want to do is select both of these objects, so the array and the hubcap, and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to move it into the backup collection, just in case we want to go back to it. Then if you select the hubcap again, we're going to apply both modifiers. So click on the dropdown, apply the mirror, click on the dropdown and apply the array. So now if we go into edit mode, you can see it's all geometry now, and let's select everything and we're going to merge. Just hit M to merge by distance, but you can see it's removed 0 vertices. And that's because we kind of set up the merging correctly. And if you want to, you can kind of select the corners there and just drag them around and make sure that nothing's overlapping, but that's looking great. Now what I want to do is I want to separate the top objects from the bottom objects. So I want the hubcap to be a separate object. Also what we can do is select the empty here and delete it. Let's go into edit mode and I'm going to deselect everything and I'll use the L key just to select the linked vertices to select the hubcap, and we'll separate it into its own object. So now this part is actually part of the tire, and that's going to be its own object, and then this will be another object. So for the tire object, we are going to add the bevel modifier. Let's zoom in closely to the bevel, and then let's turn the amount way down so it's a pretty small bevel, and we'll turn the segments to 2, and we're going to shade the object smooth. And then we're also going to add the weighted normal modifier. Search for the weighted normal to flatten up those flat faces. So now we'll select the hubcap, and we're also going to add the bevel modifier to this. So add a bevel, let's zoom in closely, and just turn the amount way down so it's pretty small. Let's turn the segments up to 2. Now when it comes to adding the bevel to the hubcap, you can see I wanted to add a bevel to like this here because that is going to be an angle. So let's turn the angle limit to a much smaller value. So turn it way down. Now if I turn it all the way down to 0, it's even going to add a bevel like to this spot here, and I don't really want that. So if I just zoom in closely, let's just turn up the angle just a little bit until it kind of gets rid of adding the bevel there. So if I go to wireframe, you can actually see where it's adding the bevels. So we'll turn the limit method angle up. It looks like maybe just turning it to like a 15 is going to be good, and then we'll shade it smooth. So that way you can see it's not adding a bevel here, but it is adding a bevel there. So then after we add the bevel, we also want to add the weighted normal just to flatten the flat faces. Now you can see back in object mode, there is like a slight discoloration here on some of these spots like around here. And so what I'm actually going to do is get rid of these extra loops here that we don't need. So first I'll go to the face select, and we're going to select these faces and hit F. And we're going to continue to do that. So just hit F once you select those triangles. And so this way there's going to be less topology. All right, just like that. Then what I'm going to do is go to the vertex select, and we're going to select that edge there, and then just Alt and Shift select all of these edges right here because we don't actually need these edges. So select those edges, and we're going to delete, and we're going to dissolve the vertices. Actually, that's the wrong one. We want to dissolve the edges. So now you can see we've just gotten rid of that, and you can see now this spot looks a lot more flat, and also the topology is less. So that is a bit nicer. Alright, so now what we're going to do is unhide the wheels and unhide the Cybertruck. And if we select both of these objects, let's go to side view. We're going to scale it way down, move it over here. And also the reference image, if I just open up the reference, we can just click on the eye there just to hide the hubcap reference. So let's go to wireframe. We're going to scale it way down and just stick it here in the very center. Also on the references, we actually want to unhide the other ones. So the top, the side, the front, the bottom, and the back, but we'll hide the hubcaps and the tire. All right, so now we can just kind of scale this down, and we'll just fit it to the original reference. So right about there, that's looking good. And then let's bring it forward, and we're just going to stick it right there, right on the wheel. Just stick it into place. All right, so now what we want to do is mirror it to all the other wheels. So we're going to select this piece here. So we want to add the same mirror modifier as the tire, because you can see the tire has a mirror modifier to mirror it over to the back as well as to the other side of the car. So we're going to select the hubcap, shift select the other detail, and then lastly shift select the tire. Now if we scroll down here to the mirror, we can click on the drop down arrow, and what we're going to do is click on copy to selected. And so that's going to copy the same exact mirror modifier to these other objects. So you can see we now have it over on this side, and we also have this one over on this side. So I'll hit Control S to save, and that's going to wrap it up for part 2 of the tutorial series. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're learning a lot from the tutorial series, and I hope you're enjoying following along. So in the next part, in part 3, we're going to be modeling the front bumper and the back bumper. We're also going to be modeling the lights on the front and the back, and then also those car reflectors on the front and back bumpers. And if you're enjoying the tutorial series and you'd like to help support the channel, a great way to do that is by purchasing the finished tutorial project files, where you'll get the finished Blender file, the final renders, the different textures, reference images, and resources to follow along with the tutorial. So links are in the description if you're interested. So when the next part is released, it's going to be right up there on the end screen, and I'll also have it linked in the video description. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 3.